So my daughter was 14 when we both got long COVID in March 2020. We were sort of, they describe it as mildly affected. So we had a little bit of a temperature, really felt like we'd been run over by a bus, a bit of a cough. Neither of us had significant breathing difficulties. And at one point we did have to call 111 for my daughter because she was really weak and floppy and unresponsive. And at the point that we did that, we were told that as long as she was breathing, we didn't need to come in, and we had to manage symptoms at home. We did actually start to feel better after about 2 to 3 weeks of getting COVID. And then within 4 to 6 weeks, we both then developed significant change and progression of symptoms that we now know to be long COVID. Obviously, at the time, it didn't have a name. And we felt very isolated, very alone. It was the beginning of the pandemic, so everything was very new as well. But we hadn't seen anybody, hadn't had any support. We didn't know anyone else who was ill. And when we reached out to our GP in May, he said he had seen one or two people that sort of seemed to have some prolonged issues with COVID infection. But he thought that if we tried a bit harder each day, we might get better. And that was our sort of main experience, really. And it was then we did then try and start doing a little bit of gentle walking. We've got a sausage dog, so we just started doing a little bit of gentle walking with him. And I'm a health and wellbeing coach, so we decided to set up a bit of a fun assault course in the garden, and it was very, very low key, very, very gentle, nothing like we would normally do. And we thought it might just pull us out of our slump and make us feel a bit brighter. And we're in 10 minutes into the warm up of that session, and we both started experiencing chest pain. My daughter went very white and pale and said she needed to go lie down. And at first we thought she was pulling a bit of a fast one and just didn't want to participate, sort of teenage-itis. And she went into the house and lay down. And then I continued, and about another 5 minutes later, I said to my husband that actually I just really wasn't feeling up to it and needed to go and lie down. And we were then basically in bed for 8 months. And neither of us could wash or feed ourselves or sit up to eat without support. Sometimes we weren't strong enough to pick up a glass of water to give ourselves a drink, and we didn't get any help. We're actually 15 months into our recovery, so we're kind of starting to see some progress now. But I think from the early days, then validation, being listened to, was really key. And to have someone actually believe what you're saying, and to just acknowledge that you need support, check in on you, would have been really, I think, would have made our experience very different to how it has been. But from a point of view of now, my daughter still hasn't had any diagnostic tests. We don't know whether she has any heart damage. We don't know whether COVID has affected her organs. I have been lucky enough to participate in research, so I have had some diagnostic tests, but they weren't available to me on the NHS, and they weren't something that was provided to give me any reassurance about how much or how little I should be doing in terms of trying to progress my recovery. So that's something that I do think we need to see, diagnostic testing. More funding into research of long COVID. That's really important, particularly into children, because we're seeing the catastrophic effects of children really coming through now, and there just isn't enough funding out there or enough research out there for that. I'd like to tackle the misinformation of aerosol transmission and really look at prevention, and implement ventilation packages in all schools so that we can reduce the amount of children that are affected with this chronic health condition. And start counting long COVID in adults and children. This has got to be something to underpin all progress, because until we actually know the numbers that are infected and the age groups that are affected, we can't give meaningful services. So those would be my kind of top ones, I think.